Welcome to the Lake Mills Parks Board of January 13th, 2025. We are going to do a quick call to order, roll call, and then we'll get into the election of a vice chair, our Parks and Forestry Director's report from Eric. We'll do the Parks Board minutes, other public comments, including emails, and then we'll have a discussion, recommendations for future considerations, and we have a presentation also scheduled tonight. So welcome. Just for your awareness, we are going to be out of here before 6:30 because we are having, I believe it's a school board meeting.
School board.
So anything that comes up, we will more likely, besides the presentation, we'll probably table it to our February meeting. So with that, roll call. Mike, would you start, please?
Mike Niesman, present.
Anita Martin here.
Tim Sprecher, present.
Mary Schmager here.
Jacob Slobby, present.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item number 3, election of a vice chair. Anita Martin has graciously volunteered to serve as vice chair. Do we have a motion to accept her nomination?
Motion to nominate Anita Martin as vice chair of the committee.
All right, do we have a second to that?
Second.
All right, do we have a vote? All in favor of Anita being elected as vice chair?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anita.
Thank you very much,
you.
Anita. Hey, do you want to just hang on to this just so you get a feel for the?
Practice.
So Eric, Parks and Forestry Director's report, please.
Well, the ad hoc committee on urban forestry management will be presenting this evening regarding some of their future recommendations. It was an extensive, over a year process to go through some of the changes and adoptions that they're suggesting. They did a phenomenal amount of work over that past over a year timeframe, so very much appreciate the work that they put into it, and certainly hope that you guys listen to some of the thoughts and recommendations that they have. Regarding Parks Department, I will keep it very brief. The last 2 weeks, starting at the first of the year, or near the first of the year, has been substantially based on ice rink creation. Weather's been up and down, but this week with the colder temperatures, I do believe that we will have the ice rink open on January 17th, which is this Friday, if weather conditions allow. And that's certainly what we're hoping for. Other than that, the remainder of the priorities for our department, weather conditions permitting, is pruning, clearance pruning, and structural pruning for all of our street trees during the dormant season. For the sake of time, is there any questions regarding the reports?
None?
Okay.
Okay, all right. Mike?
Just a real quickie. How are you going to advertise the new kayak rack availability? Is that going to be done through the existing provider out at Sandy?
So these are the self-service ones. Are you saying the storage or the self-service rentals? Both rentals will be advertised both on the city website, as well as I'm expecting some signage near the entrance to Veterans Lane off of Highway 89. The storage itself, I do believe actually as of today, all 8 spots are filled from previous wait list people who are on the Sandy Beach list.
All right, thank you. Let's move on, if you would, then. Agenda item number 5, Parks Board minutes, which were presented and should have in front of you. Any comments, corrections to the Parks Board minutes of December 9th, 2024?
They look good to me.
All right. If not, do we have a motion to accept the minutes as presented? There you go.
I'll make a motion.
All right. And do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. So all in favor of accepting? Mike, yes. Anita?
Aye.
Yes. Tim?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, Mike. Let's move to the next agenda item. We are at other public comments, including emails.
I had just one, and a question for you. Maybe it's not under our purview, but as you go up Lake Street, and then you hit the lake and it turns right. So if you go to the right, that's now Lakeshore Drive.
Correct.
On the left is a large brick house. There's about 50, 60 feet of sidewalk that hitherto had extended from the driveway of that house onto the lake. And so, one of the residents pointed out that that now has been removed and grassed. And I don't know if that's a park at the end, but I know a lot of people use it for launching kayaks and stuff.
Parks Department maintains the actual grounds itself. Now, if there's any issues with the sidewalk specifically, it's something that I can speak with their streets department with. You're saying the absence, like that concrete or sidewalk no longer exists to that
It's
area
gone.
is the issue?
Right, it's been removed and it's been grassed over.
I would anticipate that that most likely would not be reinstalled, potentially due to that stormwater drain that's there, but I can confirm with our streets department as well.
I just didn't know if it was a city plan or, because I hadn't heard anything about it and I was just surprised to see it gone.
There could be some potential eventually at some point when Lakeshore Drive is developed, at some point it may be extended or installed, but I'm not quite sure when that was removed, but it wouldn't be within the purview of Parks Department.
Any other comments? All right, hearing none, let's move to agenda item number 7.
Get off that easy. You don't get off that easy,
Are
do
you
you?
the other public comments, including emails?
I'm the other.
All right, thank you, Hope.
You think I came down here on this cold night for nothing?
Most likely not, so.
Anyway, a couple of things I would say. First of all, Ice Baby, we are getting ready. We're going to have our second Knickerbocker meeting tonight at 6
Can I
o'clock.
stop you? Could you introduce yourself
Okay,
and your
my name
address,
is Hope
please?
Ozdike, W8357 Cedar Lane in the town of Lake Mills. I am the co-chairman of the Knickerbocker Ice Festival, and we are excited about our event.
Thank you.
We are going to have ice this year. We are going to have an ice rink. We are going to have some really wonderful things. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about tonight is, and I know Eric's been working on this, when I left you last month, I was under a spell. I said I had one more thing to talk to you about, and that one more thing was, please support the idea through our council that we rescind the rules at Wallace Park if we do not have ice, so that we can have our ice events in Wallace Park and have the use of alcohol in that park. So please support that. That has been our alternate plan, and if you do not remember, last year we were faced with this weather anomaly. We had no ice. We moved our events to Rotary Park. Our ice golf event, our softball event moved to Wallace. We are limited there with the use of alcohol, and so we're lobbying for that to be kind of one of our backup plans in the future so that we don't have to go forward and worry about that as we go forward. And I think that's an understanding that we have, right, Eric? And that really, this whole event takes a great deal of cooperation from the City Parks Department, from the Police Department, and from our committee to promote this event and make it successful. So you know the challenges weather-wise. Hopefully this year it's going to be like Golden. The other thing I wanted to say is thank you. Eric has reached out to me. We have always made plans for our events to have porta potties on the lake and near the sites where the events are. On the weekend, Steve and I moved Christmas trees from assorted places where they are unwanted down to Bartles Beach where they're getting ready to be staged for the golf and the events that go on down there. While I was there, there's a huge amount of fishermen out on that lake. I don't know if there's fish. I don't know what they're doing, but they're sure having a good time. But 3 or 4 times while we were there, the 2 times we were dumping off trees, we saw people try the door on the bathrooms. You know the bathrooms are not open, but you know where they're going after that. And it's not like that doesn't happen 35 times during the day on a summer day either, but we do have those facilities available, and I think we really need to stress the fact that we need to make some kind of porta potties available. And since COVID, you know, it used to be that nobody wanted to do that kind of stuff in the porta potty business, but since COVID, they've been really good about it. And so thank you, Eric, for that. We will coordinate on that. We hope we won't have any traffic problems on the lake that day, but I'm sure we're going to have the support of the city and the town for policing that. 2 other things. I really wanted to as we go forward in the grant process that I explained to you for the Vibrant Spaces grant, I would like to make a presentation to you on what we have kind of designed for that. And what was the other thing? See, I got to write this stuff down. One more thing. I can't remember. Thanks a lot, you guys. I think you guys are doing hard work, and I know that our parks are going to benefit from it, so thank you. And thank you, Eric, for all the help you've given us.
Thank you, Hope.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Hope. Eric, just a question regarding Hope's, is that going to be something that's going to be codified into the, as far as the process?
Eventually, yes. So there is event-specific exemption for that, which we'll do for this one. That's similar to what the beer tent is in Commons Park, because alcohol is prohibited per ordinance. I believe we have one council member who's expressed interest in sponsoring such ordinance change, but hasn't been drafted yet or sent to council yet. But we will be covered for Knickerbocker with the event-specific ordinance exemption.
Okay. And then Hope's comment about the porta potties and such, is that something that's going to be in future budgets? That's so that the Parks Board should recommend that those are put there?
That's what I'll plan for 2025 into 2026 as well, just based on ice fishermen. It's not going to be substantial amount of porta potties or anything. It's just going to be one unit, potentially at Sandy Beach and one at Bartles, just to provide some services.
Is that something we can coordinate with, or do we know, does the county park have open facilities, or would they have to have a porta potty there also?
I believe the county park is open because they are pit toilets. They do not have plumbing. Yeah, so same thing as Tyranine. I believe they stay open year round because there's no plumbing.
Good. That's good to know. So thank you. Hope, did you think of your other item?
Yes. You ready?
Yes? Don't want to miss anything.
Well, you know, I'm always thinking. Through all this controversy about Sandy Beach, you know I have an opinion on that. I just want to know what you guys feel is your role in the rest of the development and the redevelopment or rethinking of Sandy Beach. I think that you guys have kind of been taken out of the loop, and I don't understand that. And I also think that we should really receive some kind of documentation or a report or some kind of a report on what was done at Sandy Beach when the archaeological study was done. I think that information should be available to the public, and we should, as a group, figure out somehow how to commemorate that part of use of Sandy Beach.
Okay, thank you. I think to answer your question, what we're going to do with that, I think that's things we could put in future agenda items for discussion and next steps. But I think we also want to have some direction from the city council as what their expectations would be. So thank you for sharing. Yes, Mary?
Yeah, I would like to make a comment regarding Sandy Beach. The city council had earmarked a few dates next week originally to meet to start discussing our next steps on how we want to look at Sandy Beach, the plan. And we couldn't make it work next week, so we still don't have a date for that. But I believe the Parks Committee, Parks Board has a role, and I'm certain we will be talking about how to engage all of our committees that could have a link: Economic Development, Parks Board, Public Works, of course, because they have a role. I think this is a far-reaching plan, and it touches, I would say, nearly all of the city staff areas. And so I expect that, I am expecting we will have some to-dos.
Thank you. All right.
And can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
I think you asked this of Eric, but I'm going to ask it again, but maybe in a different way. Do we have anything that you would like the Parks Board to move forward as a recommendation to City Council regarding the provisions, either with Knickerbocker or anything that has been brought forward in public comment?
Knickerbocker, we're fine to go for Knickerbocker,
Okay,
but
so
I
you don't
appreciate
need
you
a
asking.
recommendation from Parks Board for anything?
Nope, not at
Okay.
all. I appreciate it, though. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks for asking that, Mary. All right, thank you. So let's, now, we're going to move to item number 7, new business. So discussion recommendations for future considerations proposed by the ad hoc committee for Urban Forestry Management, Chair Jeanette Heitman. Is it correct? Thank you. And the Urban Forestry Management presentation. So it's your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, Jeanette Heitman, I was the chair of the ad hoc committee for urban development and forestry, and we have Rick Santovic, who is also on the committee that's here with me this evening. I did a presentation at the city council meeting last week about the full scope of our work. I'm happy to answer any questions about any of that. But our third charge in our committee resolution was to develop ideas to come forth to bring to the Parks Board. So I'm coming to present those to you this evening. Other members of our committee were Matt Blessing, thank you, and Brandy Duro and Elaine Thousand. So we did meet, as Eric said, for about 13 months, meetings once to twice a month, and those lasted 1.5 to 3 hours in length. Eric and Drake were present at, I believe, every meeting that we had to consult with us and give us information and be part of that discussion. So the items that I'm bringing forth to you this evening are ones that these thoughts came up throughout that 13-month span of time, and were ideas that came forth from community members that were brought to our attention, or that came from resources or presenters that came and spoke to us, or throughout our discussions. So that's how these were originated. Please stop me at any point if you have any questions. So the first
Jeanette,
would be,
Jeanette?
yeah,
I have the proposals, recommendation for future considerations as a bullet point.
Yep.
I did not copy or print the 18 pages of your PowerPoint, which is
Yep.
wonderful, by the way.
Thank you.
Are we going to need that, or is the bullet points going to suffice?
I would love for you guys to have that full report to look at later, but no, this is all that you would need right now as we're talking, yeah.
Thank
yeah,
you.
Yeah, thank you.
It was available in the package, so you can download the PowerPoint if you want.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thanks. So the first one is, advocating for additional staff, which I'm sure you guys are aware is really needed for the Parks and Forestry Department. In terms of our point of view, we were looking at, preservation of trees and vegetation within our community and our urban forest overall. And it became very evident through our discussions, and Eric, you can comment on this too, but that because of limited time and staff, there is not the ability to trim our trees at the level that they should be, at the frequency that they should be. There just isn't the time and staff. So what happens is that we get kind of damaged on both ends. Our mature trees are the ones that give us the greatest benefit. They give us shade, they provide the ability to, cleanse our air. Historically, research shows that a community with more mature trees is one that promotes healthier lifestyles, more community engagement. Overall, it's beneficial to our community. It also raises, the home values by as much as like 25%. So there's so many benefits to the mature trees, but they also take a lot of time and equipment to trim properly. If they're trimmed properly, it is the most efficient way to extend their life and keep them safe so that their limbs aren't falling. Things will happen because of weather and other things that we can't control, but trimming is the most efficient way to extend their life and keep them healthy and provide the greatest benefits to us. That can't be done at the frequency that is recommended, and that is in the documents that are present for the city to have that trimming done. The new trees that are planted need to be trimmed frequently so that they're shaped properly for later growth and development. And that's easier to do because it's quicker. You can do more trees in a shorter amount of time than you can the large trees and the mature ones. But that also is difficult to do at the frequency that it should be done. Again, because of lack of staff and because of the times that they're pulled into so many other things. The other element that came forth during our discussions is that, our city is behind as many as 500 trees in planting. So there are 500 spots within our city urban forest that a tree could be planted and could be growing at this time, and we don't have the money to plant them, the staff to plant them, we don't have the money in the budget to purchase them. And when we think about the impact of 500 trees on our community and on, all the wildlife and everything that involves, it's enormous, enormous. So that was our first, important thing that we felt needed to come before you. And I know that you advocate for a lot of things, and we talked with Drake, and maybe there's possibilities of some advocation for, money set aside for trimming through an outside agency, or other ways that maybe those things could come forth if there isn't enough money for a new staff member. Any questions on that?
Go ahead, Jacob.
I had a question. You said we need more staff. Would more staff require more trucks and more boom ladders to take care of these trees, or would staff be the only requirement?
For the real mature trees, you need equipment, right, Eric? I don't know if
Correct.
what you have or...
We have adequate equipment to do what is necessary, so we do have large-scale equipment. We have commercial-grade equipment to handle all of these pruning. It normally comes down to the time associated with it. We perform the majority of our pruning operations during the dormant season. However, my staff are parks and forestry staff. If there was time spent for dedicated forestry staff to complete these that didn't have parks duties, they could associate 100% of their time onto forestry operations. But we have split roles within my department.
Mary, you had a question?
Well, I was just thinking in regards to the 500 trees, and I know this is one of the most challenging parts of trying to figure out how you spend the limited amount of money you have and where you put it, and how to find alternatives. And I was just curious if the committee talked at all about any type of, I don't know what you call it, but like the Girl Scouts have a focus on particular elements of interest, or the Boy Scouts have need to get a patch, or are there any other ways of engaging? And it's not to get all 500, because but if you have any creative ways of us finding a way to get either money raised and or labor and or energy and excitement, enthusiasm rallied around in a community framework to try to move the needle on this at all?
Well, I think that Eric had Jay Weiss, who is the forestry director in Cambridge, and he was listed as one of our presenters. He has started the Cambridge Tree Project. That was something that he did on his own, and they planted how many trees, Eric, do you remember?
Oh, nearly almost their entire urban forest has been replanted, at least available planting locations. So I think within just a couple of years, they planted, 2,000 trees or something like that.
So my understanding was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but Jay started selling trees out of his own yard to the public, and then the money that was raised from that went to purchasing trees that were then donated to the city. So the city still had to plant them, but it was a way to add to their urban forest. Again, it took his knowledge and wherewithal, but I think he would be a wonderful person to come speak to you, to talk about that project. I think there are ways to enlist the community, but I think that we also need to remain focused on, if you could read over our report and our request for the tree protection policy, there are so many ways that our mature trees could be better protected during infrastructure projects, and they haven't been to the extent that they should be in the past. We've lost massive amounts of mature trees that have been unnecessarily removed. And there are so many ways to work around that and to improve that part too. So we can definitely improve our trimming practices with more money and resources, and maybe allocating things differently. That I don't know. That would have to be up to Eric and to Drake and powers above me. But also looking at how can we really preserve the beautiful trees that we have that have been growing here for many, many years, and that are irreplaceable in the amount of time that we would be able to plant them. None of us are ever going to see them come to maturity. We have trees that are 50, 100 years old here that are being unnecessarily removed. And then working on maybe some projects where we can enlist the community and get some more buy-in to find creative ways to be, expanding the ability to plant trees. So I think there are many, many options out there.
Thank you, Jeanette. I have a couple of questions for Eric and then also for the committee and that. And also compliment to the city, because to my knowledge, Eric, you are a certified arborist and you have others on the staff now that have gotten their tree risk assessment
Yep.
qualification.
So there's
from
been
the-
substantial changes within the forestry department overall. We do have track qualifications, which is tree risk assessment. We have 2 arborists or full-time arborists on staff as well.
And so I think that's moving forward. And then are we, as a city, using the ANSI ISA international standards for protecting trees, guarding trees during constructions and such?
That, no, not during construction projects, had not been implemented on prior road construction projects.
So I think that would be something that we could consider, because those are known standards.
And
The
that was
ANSI
put in
standard-
our tree protection policy. The other thing that I spoke to the council about, and many people came forward with this when we were trying to get our committee approved, is that have spoken to many, many people, city level, community, and I think there is a great misunderstanding that when infrastructure projects go out, the design firm designs it and brings it back to the city, and that's what either gets approved or not approved. But the city, our council, our city manager, they are the ones who set the parameters for those projects. And if tree protection is important, in many cases, it can be done. And as I brought up in my presentation, inlets can be moved, slopes of roads can be changed. There are many ways doing trenchless, putting in of lines using trenchless methods. There are so many things that can be put in place that might cost a little bit of money, but let's compare what is being spent on trees being removed. I mean, on College Street alone, I think for a private company to come in, I believe, Eric, you told me it was greater than $5,000, and that wasn't even the trees that were removed by city staff and their time and that money. And then how much money was spent on all the trees that needed to be replanted and now need to be taken care of. So when we look at some of that balancing of dollars, wouldn't it be more cost efficient to try to redesign around some of those trees and look at the beautiful benefit we get from them? So I can tell you, There were 28 trees removed, 18 of them that were not, some of those were removed privately by the church and things on College Street. But in a 2-block area, we lost 26 trees. And I can tell you from living there now, a year later, how much hotter it is, how much louder it is. All the traffic going up and down Ferry, we don't have those trees to buffer that anymore. And I can guarantee you that there are a significantly fewer number of people walking back and forth on our street. I avoid it. It's hot. There's no shade anymore. So these things impact our community greater than people realize until it happens. And I'm standing before you here saying that I was ignorant to the impact of all of this until it happened right in front of my house. And it woke me up to all of this. And I went and I looked around the city and I looked at, Mulberry Street and I looked at Lake Street. And we all know what happened on Main Street, and that's a little different situation. But the impact is the same. And it is greatly impacting the beauty and so many other qualities in our community. So we can make a difference with a lot of measures. And we talked, and Eric was a big part of that, looking at that tree protection policy. One of the other big things that is not costly are tree protection zones. So, putting fencing around the root systems, the trees that are going to remain so that they're protected. In past infrastructure projects, and I saw it right outside my house for an entire summer, without those tree protection zones, construction companies or construction firms run their equipment right over the root systems of the trees. They are compacting the soil. Those trees have a great chance of now dying within the next 2 years. Almost all of the trees that remained on College Street got gouged or in some way damaged because there were no tree protection zones around them. I say simple in that it doesn't require a lot of dollars. It would require Eric or a staff member trained to go out, put them up, check them during an infrastructure project to make sure they're not taken down. But they're a visual barrier and they protect the trees that are so important to our community and to our environment. So there are many ways that we put in there. The other thing that we talked a lot with Eric about was we put in the ANSI standards for trimming, but that doesn't mean that there is the staff or the time to do it at that level. And we went back and forth discussing that a lot as a committee. Should we still have it in there, the standard that we really want to meet, or should we lower that because we know then that's attainable? And that was a hard call, and our committee decided to keep the standard that really should be in place and that ANSI recommends, because that's what we want to strive for. And if we continue to lower that all the time, where does that put us?
Thank you. Any comments, questions?
I had a question. So when the city does these projects, is there an initiative or a possibility to relocate these trees instead of just cutting them down? Do we have the equipment for that?
For
Or-
mature trees, it's just not really viable.
Okay. What is a mature tree? Like, what's too big, I guess, to move?
To move a tree, I suppose Tim can answer that question at all. In regards to these street trees, unless the tree is below just a few years old, it is not very likely for it to survive and sustain being relocated.
As far as the process and getting these things codified is the plan to get these into the city so that this is part of the standards for any kind of projects?
Yep, I can give you a bit of a background, and perhaps Jeanette can too as well. This is just one of several charges that the tree committee had. Currently, city council has looked at rewriting of chapter 594, which is our city code ordinances for trees, as well as looking at drafted tree protection policies specifically referencing for these road construction projects. Where we're at right now is the next road construction project is planned to be Milton Street. City council will still ultimately have the authority to choose what direction it is they're going to be going with this regarding implementing and making these standards. However, it's my understanding that Milton Street will be bid out with the tree protection policy requirements in place. So it'll be used as a pilot program. Now, regarding some of the other suggestions here, some of them are specifically for Parks Board. As we go through our urban forestry master plan, called here Master Street Tree Plan, that's something that most municipalities over a certain population have in order to require for certain grant funding for urban forestry programs. Ours was authored in 1997 and horribly out of date. It's the initiative of myself and our department to have a new urban forestry master plan authored for this city, and it would also include the involvement of Parks Board to review and assess that master street tree plan as it progresses. Did I miss anything, Jeanette, or anything to add?
No, and I think, like you were saying, Eric, and I think you said for infrastructure projects, so, all infrastructure projects. So we were looking broader than just street construction. So, if some new building is put up, like to look at, can trees be preserved? Can it be moved over a couple feet? Can, just valuing what we have. We have this amazing community and gorgeous trees, and I think so many of us take it for granted. I saw a beautiful video from a gentleman, and I forwarded on to the committee, and he was talking about tree preservation, but he said so often we just take for granted what they provide for us. We never look up. We just enjoy the shade. We hear the birds. We, love the leaves crunching under our feet, but we never pause to think about, like, what's providing for those to continue to thrive within our community. So, yeah, so, and just, we would love to see, our committee would love to see the Parks Board, and I don't know how much input you have, but when we're looking at, what are the changes that are going to have at Rotary Park? My gosh, look at the gorgeous trees down there. What's going to happen there? This conversation about, this possible development on B and possibly taking out trees in Tyranina Park. We would love to see the Parks Board having a voice in that, and how, that affects our urban forest.
Thank you. A question for you, Eric. And does the city of Lake Mills have as a robust of inventory as Cambridge does? As far as their inventory, the types and the cost of the different types that they have?
We have a higher diversity of species, and Cambridge is very close. Now, you're saying types or quantities of trees or species?
Types and species, because I know Jay's work has shown that certain trees are less prone to damage, disease,
Correct.
and care over their lifetime. And so I think he is using that information as research to say, if we're going to replace a tree, let's replace it with one that doesn't require a tremendous amount of maintenance, or there's a risk of failing in 10 years.
Yep, you're correct. So all of the aspects that go into what species are planted are basically the variances and how close they're planted as well. We try to diversify streets, so there's some not standardization on streets, really. You want that diverse look on it. All the trees that are specifically planted also have pH soil samples tested on any new construction, any old construction as well. What is the soil pH listed at? And then all of the new data that's easily available, or at least available through ISA, our urban forestry coordinators with the state, Jay Weiss being a fantastic example, does dictate the species that we replace.
Okay, thank you.
And Jay did make comments when he was here about that we are definitely doing well in that direction, and had some very positive comments about the variety of our trees. He did say that we could lean more towards the big oaks because in the percentages that Eric is managing in there, because, we have been an oak savanna here. So, but yeah, he had some very positive comments about that.
Thank you.
We have We do have Tree Plotter, which is a Planet Geo program. That's a very standard program that's used with municipalities now. And I would say we're near full implementation of that with our tree inventory. We started that just over 2 years ago. So any species list that we have is available to anybody. Now, with the new website development listed on the director's report, we will have a community tree map available to or a publicly accessible community tree map available on the new city website as well.
Thank you. Mike, you had a question?
Yeah, just a plea, and I know we've talked about this before, that we strongly favor native trees, and we be cautious of cultivars, because that's been shown multiple times that you'll take a tree and then they'll cultivar so it looks better and da-da-da-da, and the bugs don't like it. And the trouble is, as we all know, it's a layer. It starts with the lower orders, goes up to the higher orders of bugs, and then on up to the birds. So that things like those crab apples that never get eaten, I don't know if they're Japanese or whatever, they're valueless. Whereas the wild crab apples, you'll see bees, multitudes there. And it's critical early in spring, the bumblebees especially, that the new queens emerge. Trees play a critical role in their ability to survive. If you knock off the emerging queen, you've lost a colony. Unlike honeybees, only the queen survives. So things like basswoods, red maple, chokecherry, willows, critical. Again, I realize there's constraints, but boy, if you can get an actual native tree, I would really plead that we favor them.
We don't limit planting of native species. So we still include native species within our plantings as well. We still include native species within our tree plantings.
And Mike, we also made a big plea for that. Sue Volanek came and gave a presentation to us about native species, and it's so critical. And that is another thing that we really, really advocate for. And I know you guys, we have to be out of here at a certain time, right? Okay, so I'll move along quickly. The second thing that we recommended was the watering truck, and I guess that's already budgeted and taken care of. Just wanted to point out that that was so critical for those new trees planting, but then also for these trees that have been put under stress because of infrastructure projects that need additional, research shows that they need additional watering in the 2 years following a stressed point in order to survive, so, or to help their survival. So we're very excited that the watering truck is put in place. We also would like to encourage, or see if you guys could encourage, the consideration of pollinator gardens in certain places, maybe in some ditches, in places in parks where we can eliminate some of the mowing, where we don't need open space. They can be beautifully done, and they really contribute to our overall health of our urban forest. So, Sue Volanek had really recommended Doug Tellemy's book on homegrown national parks. I think that would be something that is a really recommended read. There are many ideas in there, what you were going after, Mary, about, doing small little things within your community with volunteers, with encouraging education and understanding of how native species contribute to the health of our community. The next thing was to continue to educate our residents and city officials on the importance of and the impact of a healthy urban forest on our community and our climate, specifically the mature trees, and that every single community, we're all contributing to climate change. And we would like to see our community be in the forefront of trying to battle it using our urban forest and contribute as much as we can. And we would like to recommend that the Parks Board consider advocating to preserve the natural and man-made beauty of all of our parks in our community, specifically the natural features of Commons, Tyranina, and Sandy Beach parks, with the request that there be a reduction and elimination of adding more man-made features within those parks. If we look at Commons Park in the past and we look at Commons Park now with all of the man-made features that have been added with monuments and things like that, just a consideration of that trade-off between the natural beauty that many of our parks have, and do we really want to decrease that, or can we maintain that and still have the parks provide what we would like for our community? So just giving thought to that as we move forward. To facilitate conversations between forestry, utility services, and the Lake Mills School District to explore new ideas to reduce the loss of trees from road reconstructions, utility work, and infrastructure projects. And I brought up at the council meeting, there was a discussion with the supervisor for the utility lines, and he mentioned that many other communities have taller utility poles than ours does. And raising those utility poles not only takes the utility lines out of the vision of people looking out of their homes, so it's more attractive, it also allows for taller trees to be planted on the side where the utility lines run. So we also were talking at one of our meetings about how, there's going to be some changes to the school districts coming forward, the school buildings, and, talking with them about, we're all a part of this urban forest, and could some of their planning and development work towards maintaining as many trees that are present in the area, if there are any, versus taking them out and just considering them just, something that can be eliminated quickly. And again, looking at, we are a community, we're a small, beautiful community, but if we work together, we can all make more of a change. To promote tree planting by residents within their private properties. Again, when I came at this entered this committee, I didn't have as much of an understanding of, our urban forest definitely includes all of our tree lawns and our parks and all the other areas, but it also includes all of our private properties. So if we can encourage tree planting and the health and beauty of our entire community, it's only going to benefit all of us. So that might be another thing that the Parks Board could promote. Within our second charge, we made changes to 594 I can't remember the last number, but it's the tree ordinance that the city had, and we made some changes to that. The largest one that we recommended was the addition of a heritage tree program. So that would be a program that is, we spelled out criteria where people can, or, Eric can choose a tree, but people can nominate trees on their private property or on public property that could be a part of this heritage tree program. So it's because of the age, the species, the size, maybe some historical value to that tree. Matt Blessing on our committee would be a great resource if you are interested in looking at this further. He had some wonderful ideas about how to promote maybe a collaborative effort with our school districts. We put in the tree ordinance that we would like the heritage tree program to be the documents or pictures of it housed by the city, but we were looking at, we would like that to be digital, and that maybe, a school botany class or biology class or an IT class could be developing a part of the website for the city that would have the pictures of those heritage trees and information about what makes that tree special. Again, trying to just encourage education across our community, but especially with our youth, and having them see the value of our trees through that program, and also to give greater preservation to some of these very special trees. And the last one was just increased awareness of invasive species. I think there are a lot of people in our community, myself included, that are not very knowledgeable on what plants or bushes come under the invasive species kind of umbrella. And, are there ways that we can have volunteers at the festivals, at a table, or at the farmers markets when they're out there, and just increasing awareness about that and what impact it can have on our community?
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for all your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. All right, so in the interest of time, I would ask us to go to the agenda, and that we are, as far as discussion, this is something we could more than likely put on future agenda items, all things that Jeanette and others have brought up, and things that maybe Eric can present, and we can get other people in here to give us some idea. And then also some other ideas would be coming forth as to the preservations of cost and things like that, that we, especially in the parks, going forward. I know on our new business, we are not going to get to it, but it's the discussion, invite Lake Mills leader reporter Abigail Levens for input on community opinions. I just think it'd be nice to have her to be able to present to the city kind of things that Jeanette and others have brought up. It'd be kind of nice to get these bullet points and maybe even some sort of criteria. So the more we can get, how we can help her be able to report this stuff, I think that would be a good thing to meet with her. Yes, Mike?
Would that be a one-time thing, or like every couple months, or?
I think that's something that's open for discussion. And I think we could go to her and say what works best for you. I don't like to dictate without some information. So thank you very much. So any other recommendations for future agenda items on number 8? Yes, Mary?
Well, the conversation about trees and parks, that alignment is kind of intriguing, and knowing that we will be discussing Sandy Beach, is it possible to have like a presentation overview or discussion on what is the tree quality, and like, how would we describe those on Sandy Beach today? Where do we know that there might be some issues, so we can actually, as a board, understand the current state? So as we think about what future state might look like, we know what our current baseline is?
I don't know if that would be quite ready for the next meeting, but we are doing a full inventory and analysis, or basically inspection of all the trees at Sandy Beach, so we have that information as we go forward developmental plans. So I don't think I'd be ready for the February one, but that's one of the goals with our tree plotter system, is we have tree inspections, that they're all ANSI standard, ISA standard tree inspection documentation. That is not complete for all of the trees at Sandy Beach, but that is our goal before we go into development projects.
Okay, because I think it's a little bit yin and yang, though, because there are aspects, I know on the, which would be like the north side, I think we call it the east side of the beach. I call it north, but is it east? It's very tree.
Yeah, we say east. We say shady and sunny side.
Yeah, so the shady side is very shady, and people flock there. If you ever watch the people, I always like that, you should design about how the people, like sometimes how they use the park, and they run over and they set camp because that's where the shade is, so that as the sun starts coming up and everyone starts frying on the beach, they want a place to go for some reprieve, and so that is super shady. But I don't know, are those trees healthy? And so if they're not healthy, and we're going to take out a lot of them, and that is no longer a shady spot, then do you change what you do on the beach? That's kind of, or on the park.
I'm glad you
Like,
brought that up. The first step basically in developing a plan is figuring out what you currently have.
Yeah.
We need to complete the inventory and do our inventory inspections on all the trees down there before we move forward with any decisions on any of them.
And that's a few months for you. You said it's not next month. You said not February agenda, but
It would be difficult by next meeting month. It could be,
maybe March.
yeah, I would say
Something like
March would be realistic to have tree inspections completed at Sandy Beach.
Because I think that would be an interesting conversation for us to.
I agree. I think that's something, the inventory, especially at the premier parks. And I think that'd be just a start there. So Sandy Beach, Bartles Beach, get an idea, both species, what their native is, whether their heritage, and also what their upkeep and long-term outlook is.
So currently we have, obviously location, species, cultivar, we have all of that listed.
Yeah.
We have DBH listed, which is diameter at breast height, basically the general size of the tree. What does require much more rather than a drive-by inspection, so we can just inventory these very quickly with those parameters, would be true health inspection. That does require time. Some of them require aerial inspections. So to give a thorough inspection of a tree does require some time. So that's why I'd like to have that inventoried. So there's, it's just not looking at it. There's more to just looking at it before we issue a proper inspection.
Right.
But that is currently underway.
Wonderful. So any other recommendations for future agendas? Yes, Mike?
My hardy perennial of, I sure would like to get a tour of the parks facilities. And, remember we talked about that where, and I know it's going to be impossible to get everybody together, so maybe if you come up with a date and who can make it, makes it, who doesn't, doesn't. Anyway.
I can do that. I'll tell you, I think that would be easy to do within January.
Okay.
I can shoot out a few dates in January.
Wonderful, thank you. Any other future agenda items? If not, you can all send them to me or to Eric and we can add them, so, very good. So at 6:25:24, the Parks Board meeting of January 13th is adjourned. And congratulations, Anita.